from the last episode, I promised to continue the second part of our live tutorial, the high school edition. Now, when students go on riot, when they ban schools or institutions of learning, when they engage in acts of arson, for whatever reason, the people who shoulder the greatest and heavy burden are the innocent parents. Now, nothing will ever justify why a group of students will go against the law of nature and torch their schools, end up killing or even maiming their fellow students in pursuit of unwarranted acts of ignorance to settle scores or even wage vendettas. Wherever you are watching us from, welcome to LTS episode number 22, and we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can like, share, and even comment. Now, the year is 1993, and I was very much ready to join high school after passing my primary national exam with flying colors. Now, as previously mentioned to you, I was still bargaining with my father, my dad, on whether he will get me to Mzungu school, since he had outsmarted me and I remained in the local primary school for 8 years. I remember in 2019, April, I took my children to go and see this same school that my father camped me in for 8 years. Anyway, I got several call-ups to join high school, but all of them were day school. I really wanted to join a boarding school. Now, as fate will have it, my parents opted to take me to a provincial day school. And since it was affordable and close to home, unfortunately, it was not a Mzungu school, but a mixed school of locals and Asian. It seemed as if history was repeating itself. Now, I joined UG High on day one, and imagine the very same day that I started going to this local Asian high school, it was the very same day I got up a call-up letter to join a provincial school, which was a boarding school in a town called Odaya in Central Province. Now, since this is what I really wanted, my parents decided to take a financial hit, and they decided to make quick arrangements here and there so that I will not miss the deadline, which was 78 hours. Otherwise, I lose the chance. So my mama made up a last-minute shopping, and I was there to just get the measurements of the school requirements. We boarded a public bus, and I remember it was about 4 p.m. in the evening, and that journey was a journey of more than 7 hours. Inside this little boy, I had full of mixed emotions, since I was not very certain what I'm going to meet, and also this journey was uncertain because we had to connect with several buses, and the destination to the central province was not certain because it was late at night. And although the risk was high due to the nature of the travel and missing connecting buses, we finally arrived in Nyeri town, and my uncle was there to pick us up. And in fact, we arrived at 2 a.m. in the morning. To this date, I hold my uncle with a lot of esteem because he shaped my youthful age. So, big up, Mr. Daniel Njoroge. Now, on the 18th of February 1994, my uncle, Mr. Daniel, drove us to this new high school, which I will not name for fear of retribution, okay? I was left alone in a new world for the first time. Now, some old boys, the ones who are already there and existing, they escorted me to the dormitory in the presence of my mother and my uncle, and the impression that they created to my mama and my uncle. In fact, my mama left knowing that my son is in safe hands and in a caring community. I did bid them farewell and I saw them drive off the dusty road past the school gates until they disappeared into the thickets of the coffee plantation that was surrounding the school. Now, for the first time, I felt so sad, so empty, and so broken, and in fact, I held a few teardrops. Now, no sooner had the car disappeared into the coffee plantation than the boys began auctioning me and my belongings. Trust you me, all my personal effects were shared before my eyes. Even my beddings were taken and exchanged for old and unwashed, smelling, dirty linen. I could not believe my eyes. As a new joiner, they used to call us mono, meaning one, because I joined from one. My new shoes were auctioned while still on my feet. And one student, I will never forget his name, he had a nickname by the name of Ozzy. He took my shoes and he gave me flip-flops. To make matters even worse, the packed meal that had been made by my aunt, chapati, beef stew, and a couple of fruits. And I remember there was some good passion fruits. Trust you me, they were consumed while I watched. That was the beginning of the worst experience in high school. Now, after that orientation experience of day one, I remember it was February 18, 1994, that night, me and my fellow monos did not sleep. Why? The senior students had commandeered us to start singing lullabies for them. And the worst part is, they could not fall asleep because they were enjoying every part of the drama. Now imagine singing a lullaby to a big adult and he's not sleeping, he's still laughing. You try all the melodies you can and nothing seems to be working. When they finally allowed us to go to sleep, it was 3 a.m. in the morning. Now, that part of the country, Odaya, that area, is very cold. So unless you are well loaded with warm blankets and sleeping covers, you will feel the nightmare of frozen limbs and hands. In fact, when you wake up in the morning, your fingernails have turned into gray. Now, I could not sleep. I could not get any sleep since I had to do with the light linen and sleep with the same uniform, trying to keep myself warm. I wept silently through that night, wishing I could take back the hand of time. Now, the school was like a jail. Pardon my expression here. That's why I'm not even mentioning the name of the school. Students had more power and control over the running of affairs than the teachers. Meal times were survival for the feasters, and worst of all, no one was a mother of the other. To get any form of rationing, you had either to get an old boy to protect you or even get a meal for you. That was high school. All this was happening in the full glare of teachers, including the principal, but nothing was being done or even said. So I ask a big question. Teachers, you've been entrusted with the responsibility of nurturing students, whether it's primary or it's now high school, where people are maturing and they're coming to the youthful age. What exactly are you supposed to do when you see them making wrong choices in the full glare of your eyes at the sun of the day? Now, since the washrooms were common and the shower areas were also common and open, one day, I witnessed something that I will never wish upon any student. A fellow mono came to take a shower. Unfortunately, he had not been initiated into adulthood. So the old boys who saw that, they decided to take matters into their own hands. Believe it or not, They performed the ritual using a bread and butter knife. Now, the poor Mono bled profusely, but thank God he made it in time for a reconstructive surgery, and that was the last that I saw of him, although we later reconnected after the parents opened up a police case against the school administration. Now, all this happened within 3 weeks of joining this new high school. Monos or ex-monos acted as a subject. In fact, they were not just students. They were servants to other students, to wash their clothes, to polish their shoes, do the laundry, you name it, including sometimes getting hot water for them in the morning. Now, this was not what I had envisioned as a high school to be. In fact, I tried all means to get in touch with anyone whom I will send a message to so that they can be able to reach my uncle about what was going on in this high school. But every system was controlled from within by the prefects. In fact, they also had partnership with some casual workers. I befriended one casual worker with the promise of paying him when my uncle visits me. So I penned down a small letter and I asked him to post for me. Now, I did not know how long it's going to take, but I knew one day my uncle will get my letter with my concerns of what exactly was going on in that high school. Now, a big question here. You have been hired, you have been employed to work as a worker or a casual worker or an employee in a school or an institution. The big question is, are you in conduit with the students to bring the institution down, or are you part of a person who is there to support, build, and nurture the character of the students that have been entrusted to you? Now, on the 18th of March 1994, that was a fundraising day, and it had been organized so that they can raise some funds in aid of building a new physics lab. Now, since my parents were very far and they could not visit, that day I was all by myself. But something strange happened that day. Since it was not common to see old students or the old boys waiting for monos who had been visited, it was very common that during visiting days, they would wait. When you're visited, they will bounce, take your goodies, and that's it. But this day, they were not around at all, and they could not be seen around the school. That alone was not a good sign, since no one knew what they would do or even attempt to do when they resurfaced. Now, during the lunch break, it was great for us. It was great to eat good food that had been prepared for the guests and the visiting parents. In fact, we were not on a survival mode that day. I ate pilau, I ate beef stew. In fact, the soft drinks were there for free. And that day, I felt as if I was at home. But as we ate, we kept on looking over our shoulder, since the absence of the senior colleagues was very, very strange and very odd. At 4 p.m., the guests and the visiting parents left the school compound and the gates were closed. I wish they would have stayed there because we will just be okay and things will just be running so smoothly. But at 6 p.m., we started to see the old boys appearing one after the other from the thickets of the coffee bush plantation that surrounded the school. Now, the funny thing is, that day, they were all very calm, very composed, well behaved. In fact, I remember one student who came and told me that we mono ya LD na usiende kulala mapema leo. Translating to, hey new joiner from Eldoret, don't go to sleep early today. I just nodded and brushed him off. Strangely, because I guess he knew I used to go to bed early every day so that I can be able to hide from being bullied. So at about 9 p.m., I went to the dormitory to sleep. But I found myself with less than 10 other monos in the dormitory. Now, this was very strange. Why? Because normally everyone would be busy either preparing to go to bed or setting up themselves ready for the next day. Now, after about 15 minutes in the dormitory, I stepped outside and I went to the dining hall where a few students used to always meet for the evening devotion before they would go to bed. Now, these were the members of the CU, commonly known as the Christian Union. So I joined this group not knowing exactly where to go, since I knew most of the members here were also there to avoid harassment and wait for the burnout of time so that the old boys would go to sleep and they would quietly sneak into the dormitories and also sleep. So I was there until about 11 p.m. Now I remember vividly there was a sudden blackout in the entire school, except phase 2, which included the dining hall where I was currently seated. Now, within a fraction of a second, a hooded student, he was covered properly to the head, stepped to the main meter and smashed it and caused a short circuit and all lights went dead. We were now in a completely blackout. Next were wails and screams from outside, windows being smashed, shattering glasses, coded names here and there being mentioned from the outside. In fact, it was a nightmare. I remember seeing a ball of fire from where I had found myself under the dining hall table. And in fact, the administration block was up in flames. The classrooms adjacent to the principal office were also up in flames. Fear gripped me to the core, since I could not see anything that was happening except through the light that was from the flames of the torched buildings that I could see through the window. I did not know whether I was alone or there were other students inside the dining hall, since everyone was so quiet to avoid attracting any attention. This was not an ad hoc attack. This was a pre-planned, premeditated, well-orchestrated, and well-thought-of plan. In fact, all the perpetrators had black hoodies that covered their faces. They had full aprons. And it was after a while that I heard the sirens from the police from a distance. And since it was pitch dark, that time it was almost about 3 a.m., anyone found by the police was not spared the wrath either. Now, it took the police almost 2 hours to gain access to the school. At about 5 a.m., I saw flashing lights and torch spotlights approaching where I was. The sniffer dogs were barking, and it was all very clear they were heading towards our direction. I was not alone because people started screaming. It was then that I knew there were 18 other students together with me in that dining hall that very moment. Now, the police took us and escorted us to the teacher's quarter, which was the holding ground. As we passed through the buildings that were now burning down, The fire brigade were attempting to quench the fire or to even extinguish the flames that were now soaring and roaring high. They had already engulfed the administration block, the classrooms, and the 2 dormitories. All were up in flames. Now, at daybreak, the buildings were still up in flames, and the whole area was full of dark smoke. Now, at 6 a.m., we were all gathered by the police in front of the remains of the now so-called administration block, and we were given direct instructions by the OCPD. And he said, some students broke into the accounts office, took away the safety box that held the cash float and the proceedings from the fundraising which had been held the previous day. He said, very bitterly, you have decided to burn the school and the dormitories, including the offices. Whoever did this, the full arm of the law will catch up with you. In fact, I give you 15 minutes to take what belongs to you and disappear completely and go away from here. The OCPD was a bitter man. In fact, he said, anyone who will be spotted within 20-kilometer radius by police in the next 1 hour would be treated as a suspect. It was then that hell broke loose and all students scampered and went to pick anything in the dormitories or wherever that they would need and get out of school. When I went to the dormitory, it was down in ashes, and I recall very well what I had been told the previous night. Hey, Mono, new joiner from LD, from Eldoret, do not go to sleep early today. Now, friends of LTS, that day I lost good friends. And in fact, I have scars from the broken glasses that remind me until this day that there's someone who watches over me. This is the simple truth of the week. There is no justification whatsoever why students should burn schools or even destroy resources that they will need. Venting out their anger, frustrations, or any form of discontent can be handled in a more civilized manner with an open approach to find an amicable solution. Now, taking action that risks the life of others and destroying that which has been built by sweat, blood, and tears, including hard work, is not a solution to any problem. In fact, on the contrary, it is something that doubles up that burden. Friends, the school remained closed for 7 months. And even after being recalled back, every parent was required to pay a damage fee of a lot of money. And the school fees are rare of the whole year, despite the fact that we were not active in the school. The parent bears the greatest burden and pain when a child acts without second thought. There was a lot of damage done both emotionally, psychologically, mentally, and even physically. And that takes a long time to heal. So the big question, who is to blame? When it's all said and done, teachers are entrusted to take care of students, lead, guide, and develop them. But in this case scenario, they were just there observing and watching things as it spiraled out of control. So, who is to blame when things fall apart? Thank you very, 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 very much for watching LTS episode number 22. And if you have any experience that you would like to share with us, kindly drop me a note on the handles that are running down on the screens, and we'll be more than glad to share your experience. Now, we still invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and activate the notification bell so that you get our weekly alerts once we upload our videos. And as we always say it here from LTS, remember, the most highly valued asset of any successful company is the staff. And so, even a teacher is a staff. So for any successful school to run, it requires good staff, good teachers, and disciplined students. So, my journey of seeking and pursuing the quest of joining Mzungu school until that experience was not successful. Do you want to know if whether or not I joined Mzungu school? Then stay tuned and get locked on the next episode, and I will tell you whether that dream of many, many years did bear any fruit. See how miracles work. Until next week, from us, be safe, be kind, and God bless.